and welcome to Miss Bailey's Daily Dose. Today we're going to be looking at chapter 3 of our The Enchanted Wood book and then doing some creative work from that. The children did not tell their father and mother about their happenings in the Enchanted Wood, for they were so afraid that they might be forbidden to go there. But when they were alone, they talked about nothing else. "When do you suppose we could go at the Faraway Tree?" Frannie kept asking. "Oh, do, let's go, Joe." Joe wanted to go very badly, but he was a little afraid of what might happen, and he knew that he ought to look after his two sisters and see that no harm came to them. Just suppose they all went up the Faraway Tree and never came back. Then he had an idea. "Listen," he said, "I know what we'll do. We'll climb up the tree and just see what is at the top. We don't need to go there, we can just look. We'll wait until we have a whole day to ourselves, then we'll go." The girls were so excited. They worked hard in the house, hoping that their mother would say they could have a whole day to themselves. Joe worked hard in the garden too, clearing away all the weeds. Their parents were very pleased. "Would you like to go to the nearest town and have a day there?" asked Mother at last. "No, thank you," said Joe at once. "We've had enough of towns, Mother. What we'd really like is to go and have a whole day picnic in the wood." "Very well," said Mother. "You can go tomorrow. Father's going off for the day to buy some things we need, and I have things to do here in the cottage. So, as I'll be close by, you can take your lunch and dinner and go off by yourselves, if it is fine and sunny." How the children hoped the day would be fine. They woke early and jumped out of bed. They pulled their curtains open and looked out. The sky was as blue as cornflowers. The sun shone between the trees and the shadows lay long and dewy on the grass. The Enchanted Wood stood dark and mysterious behind their garden. They all had breakfast. Their mother cut sandwiches and put them in a bag along with 3 cakes each. She sent Joe to pick some plums from the garden and told Beth to take 2 bottles of lemonade. The children were most excited. Father set off to town and the children waved goodbye to him from the gate. Then they tore off indoors to get the bag in which their food had been put. They said goodbye to their mother and slammed the cottage door. Adventures were in the air that morning. "Up the Fari Tree, Joe, Beth and me," sang Frannie loudly. "Hush," said Joe. "We're not far from the Enchanted Wood. We don't want anyone to know what we're going to do." They ran down the back garden and out of the little gate at the end. They stood still in the overgrown narrow lane and looked at one another. It was the first big adventure of their lives. What were they going to see? What were they going to do? They jumped over the ditch and into the wood. At once they felt different. Magic was all around them. The birds' songs sounded different. The trees once again whispered secretly to one another. "Wisher, wisher, wisher, wisher." "Ooh," said Frannie, shivering with delight. "Come on," said Joe, going down the green path. "Let's find the Faraway Tree." They followed him. He went on until he came to the oak tree under which they had sat before. There were the 6 toadstools too, on which the elves had held their meeting, though the toadstools looked rather brown and old now. "Which is the way now?" said Beth, stopping. None of them knew. They set off down a little path, but they soon stopped, for they came to a strange place where the trees stood so close together that they could go no farther. They went back to the oak tree. "Let's go this other way," said Beth. So they set off in a different direction. But this time they came to a curious pond whose waters were pale yellow and shone like butter. Beth didn't like the look of the pond at all, and the 3 of them went back once more to the oak tree. "This is too bad," said Frannie, almost crying. "Just when we've got a whole day to ourselves, we can't find the tree." "I'll tell you what we'll do," said Joe suddenly. "We'll call those owls. Don't you remember how they said they would help us whenever we wanted them?" "Of course," said Frannie. "We had to stand under this oak tree and whistle 7 times. "Go on, Joe, whistle," said Beth. So Joe stood beneath the thick green leaves of the old oak and whistled loudly 7 times. The children waited. In about half a minute, a rabbit popped its head out of a nearby rabbit hole and stared at them. "Who do you want?" said the rabbit in a furry sort of voice. The children stared in surprise. They'd never heard an animal speak before. The rabbit put his ears up and down and spoke again rather crossly. "Are you deaf? Who do you want?" I said. "We want one of the owls," said Joe, finding his tongue at last. The rabbit turned and called down his hole. "Mr. Whiskers, Mr. Whiskers, there's someone wanting you." There came a voice shouting something in answer, and then one of the 6 elves squeezed out of the rabbit hole and stared at the children. "Sorry to be so long," he said. "One of the rabbit's children has the measles and I was down seeing to it." "I didn't think rabbits got the measles," said Beth, astonished. "They more often get the weasels," said Mr. Whiskers. "Weasels are even more catching than measles as far as rabbits are concerned." He grinned as if he'd made a huge joke, but as the children had no idea that weasels were savage little animals that caught rabbits, they didn't laugh. "We wanted to ask you the way to the Faraway Tree," said Beth. "We've forgotten it." "I'll take you," said Mr. Whiskers, whose name was really a very good one, for his beard reached to his toes. Sometimes he trod on it, and this jerked his head downwards suddenly. Beth kept wanting to laugh, but she thought she'd better not. She wondered why he didn't tie it round his waist out of the way of his feet. Mr. Whiskers led the way between the dark trees. At last, he reached the trunk of the enormous faraway tree. "Here you are," he said. "Are you expecting someone down it today?" "Well, no," said Joe. "We rather wanted to go up it by ourselves." "Go up it by yourselves?" said Mr. Whiskers in horror. "Don't be silly, it's dangerous. You don't know what might be at the top. There's a different place almost every day." "Well, we're going," said Joe firmly, and he set his foot against the trunk of the tremendous tree and took hold of a branch above his head. "Come on, girls." "I shall fetch my brothers and get you down," said Mr. Whiskers in a fright, and he scuttled off crying. "It's so dangerous, it's so dangerous." "Do you suppose it is all right to go?" asked Beth, who was usually the sensible one. "Come on, Beth," said Joe impatiently. "We're only going to see what's at the top. Don't be a baby." "I'm not," said Beth, and she and Frannie hauled themselves up beside Joe. It doesn't look very difficult to climb. We'll soon be at the top, but it wasn't as easy as they thought, as you will see. I'm going to carry on for a little bit more. Chapter 4, The Folk of the Faraway Tree. Before very long, the children were hidden in the branches as they climbed upwards. When Mr. Whiskers came back with 5 other elves, not a child could be seen. "Hey, come down," yelled the elves, dancing round the tree. "You'll be captured or lost. This tree is dangerous." Joe laughed and peered down. The faraway tree seemed to be growing acorns just where he was, so he picked one and threw it down. It hit Mr. Whiskers on the hat, and he rushed away, shouting, "Oh, something's hit me, something's hit me." Then there was silence. "They've got," said Joe, laughing again. "I expect they don't much like when it rains acorns, funny little things. Come on, girls." "This must be an oak tree if it grows acorns," said Beth as she climbed. But just as she said that, she stared in surprise at something nearby. It was a prickly chestnut case with hard nuts inside. "Good gracious," she said, "it's growing horse chestnuts just here. What a very peculiar tree." "Well, let's hope it will grow apples and pears higher up," said Frannie with a giggle. "It's a most extraordinary tree." Soon they were quite high up. When Joe parted the leaves and tried to see out of the tree, he was amazed to find that he was far higher than the tallest tree in the wood. He and the girls looked down on the top of all the other trees, which looked like a broad green carpet below. Joe was higher up than the girls. Suddenly, he gave a shout. "I say, girls, come up here by me, quickly. I've found something odd." "Why, it's a window in the tree," said Beth in astonishment. They all peered inside, and suddenly the window was flung open and an angry little face looked out with a nightcap on. "Rude creatures!" shouted the angry little man, who looked like a... So what we're going to do now is we're going to see whether we can create the character that we think is in the tree. Hello and welcome to Miss Bailey's Daily Dose. Today we are going to be learning to describe. So you've just heard me reading the 3rd paragraph or the 3rd chapter of the Enchanted Wood book and a bit of the 4th one. And we're going to be describing the character that Joe, Beth and Frannie have just met in the tree. So they describe him as an angry man. But he's inside this tree and we've got to think about, what magical character could be in there. So, before we start, we're having a little look at adjectives. I know I've done this before, so I'm going to go through it really, really quickly. An adjective is a describing word. It adds details to what a character or something looks like or is like. So, for example, this pen is red. That's an adjective. It's describing its colour. It's thick. That's describing what it looks like. And it is rubbish. That's describing what it actually is like because the top of it's actually fallen off. So you can describe what it looks like using adjectives and what it is like, what it does, whether it's any good or not. And we can use that when we're describing characters. So we can say that a character's beautiful, a character's old, kind, grumpy, pretty, whatever. So this is the Pixie character. That is the angry man from the Enchanted Wood. And that's the version that I found. Now you, because we haven't actually seen a proper picture of it, could create your own picture, and that could be something that you do yourselves. So you think about what character do you think is inside of that enchanted tree that they've just met. Okay, it's an angry man who's telling them to go away. So if we're looking at adjectives to describe what he looks like, well, if I'm having a look, he's got black hair. So black hair. And his hair is quite scruffy as well. So I'm describing what it looks like in colour and in texture as well. He's got a very long, pointy nose. So I'm going to put long, pointy nose, almost like a witch. You can see that. His ears. So his ears are like pixie ears. So they're pointed, or elf ears. He's got some pink leggings on. Not something that we'd usually be in. Bright pink leggings. He's got some old, brown, what look like boots. He's got a black belt on with a silver buckle. And his eyebrows are quite bushy, so he's got bushy eyebrows. Again, you could go into even more detail. So you could talk about the fact that he's wearing the red jumper or waistcoat over the top, and he's got green, wearing a green jumper underneath. You could say about his cheeks that are rosy red. There are lots of other things you could say, but overall, he's quite a strange, weird and ugly looking character. So I'm going to say he's quite ugly. And we know that he looks quite angry, because you can be angry, but you can also look angry in your face as well. Then if we're describing what he's like as a character, now we don't know much about him, so we have got to sort of create our own character, what we think he's like. So we know he's quite angry because he's coming out of his house, it's in the Enchanted Tree, and he's going to have a go at Joe, Beth and Frannie. So we know he's an angry character. So he's quite aggressive. Now because he's shouting, we can have a look at some of the other ones. So mean is quite a good one, so he's quite a mean character. Is he friendly? Definitely not. So we'll have a look at some of the others. Grumpy, he's quite a grumpy character. You know, Beth, Joe and Frannie are climbing up the tree. They've seen this window and they're peering in because they've never seen it before. And he's opened that window and he's wanting to say, go away, stop peering through my window. So quite grumpy, aggressive, mean. Miserable's a really nice one. He's a miserable character. Instead of saying, hello, my name's whatever, straight away he's having a go at them. So he might be quite a miserable character. Might be not very nice as well. And also, we can think about actually, is there a reason why he's being angry? Is it that actually he's fed up of every time people are crawling up that tree and climbing up that tree, that they're peering into his window? Imagine if you were at home and every time someone walked past, they kept peering in at you at your window. You wouldn't want that. So maybe he's acting aggressive in that way. So you could think about what he's like usually. Maybe he's quite a lonely person. Maybe he likes being on his own. He likes his own space. He doesn't like other people. So maybe he's lonely. Maybe actually. So we've got lonely here. Maybe actually he's quite a quiet person. And the reason why he's angry is because he's sick of people looking through his window. But usually maybe he's quite quiet. He likes reading. He likes stitching boots or making clothes. We don't know. You've got to make that up. So you've got to decide. So we're going to have a little look at similes again. I'm not going to bother putting the video on because it was in a previous video that I did. But a simile is when you compare something to something else. So for example, this dress is as blue as the sky, or is as turquoise as the ocean. So something that you can describe it to. We use the word as or like. So it's turquoise like the ocean, or it's as turquoise as the ocean. So as or like you can use. So he crept into the room as quiet as a mouse. The mouse is very quiet. The cloud was fluffy like cotton candy. The cotton candy is fluffy. The snowflakes sparkled like millions of tiny diamonds. The tiny diamonds sparkled. He was as angry as a grizzly bear. The grizzly bear is angry. And it's really important that we're comparing correctly. So you wouldn't say that this dress is as turquoise as my hair, because my hair is not turquoise, it's ginger. So you've got to make sure that you're comparing it properly. So we could use similes to describe our angry man who lives in the tree. Here he is. The angry man has a nose as long as. So we've got to think of something that is long. So as long as a ruler, as long as a bench. So I might put as long as a ruler. You can even put a meter stick, full stop. His hair is as dirty as. So again, we're thinking about something that's dirty. And again, it could be more than one word. It could be as dirty as my dog after she's been on a walk in the rain. It could be as dirty as my boots when I splash in the mud. So I'm going to put his hair is as dirty as unwashed dishes. Full stop, so unwashed dishes. He is as small as. So because I found out he's a pixie, pixie's quite small. So we've got to think he's a very small man. He's a pixie, so he's magical. How small is he going to be? He is as small as a little boy or girl. He is as small as a mouse. He is as small as a grain of rice. So I'm going to put he is as small as a mouse. So I've used similes to describe some of the features of this character, what he is like, and what he looks like, mainly what he looks like on this one. His eyebrows are as bushy as. So you've got to think of something that is bushy as a bush, or as bushy as a dog's tail. So as bushy as a dog's tail. Now, because the tail belongs to the dog, we need a possessive apostrophe after the G and the S afterwards. The tail belongs to the dog. Oh, let me get rid of that full stop because I forgot I put an and here. So his eyebrows are as bushy as a dog's tail and his ears are as pointy as. So think of something that's pointy. So as pointy as the vertices on a triangle. Or as pointy as the corner of a table. Any of those sorts of things. Or as pointy as a sign, a road sign that's pointing to something. His leggings are pink like. So instead of using the as, which I like to use quite a lot, like, we've got to think of something that's pink. So pink like flowers. This baby's going to use that one. And his shoes are as old as, so something that's really old. So it could be as old as a Roman artifact, or as old as my grandma. As old as my grandma. Is this a good simile? So have a little think. He has a nose as long as a grain of rice and eyebrows like a pencil. So he has a nose as long as a grain of rice and eyebrows like a pencil. Is that a good simile? Well, no, it's not. And I can tell you why it's not. Because his nose is as long as, so it's got to be long. A grain of rice, well, a grain of rice is probably about that big. So it's not very long. So I know that a grain of rice is not a good comparison. And his eyebrows are like a pencil. Well, his eyebrows are really bushy and curved. And a pencil isn't bushy and a pencil isn't curved. So a pencil is not a very good comparison. He is as grumpy as a princess and hates people disturbing him as much as I hate dancing. Again, is that a good simile? Well, no. Princesses, not usually grumpy from what I know. And he hates just people disturbing him as much as I hate dancing. Well, I love dancing. So that's a very, very bad comparison. When we're looking at writing our description, it's very easy to write simple sentences. So this is an example of some simple sentences that are not a very good description. He lives in the faraway tree. He is angry. He has a nose. I haven't used many adjectives there. I haven't said what his nose is like, what colour is his nose, what's the length of his nose. I haven't said where he lives in the faraway tree. Is it at the top, at the bottom, in the middle? I've said he's angry. Why is he angry? We don't know. So today we're going to be using similes to describe what the character looks like and is like as a character. So I've decided to call him a special name. Now I don't know what his name actually is, but I went online and I put in Pixie names and I picked one. So you can pick one for your character. Name him, give him a name. So I put Suki is the pixie who lives in the faraway tree. He has a nose as long as a giraffe's neck and ears as pointy as the corner of a table. His eyebrows are as bushy as a dog's tail and his eyes are red like fire. He also wears a bounce as black as coal to stop his chubby belly from falling out of his leggings. As well as this, he wears a pair of bright pink leggings and boots on his feet, which are as old as a Roman artefact. So that's me using different similes to describe exactly what he looks like. There's nothing in there to say what he's like as a character. I haven't said that he's angry or moody or miserable. I haven't said any of those things. So this is the section where we're just looking at what that character actually looks like, their appearance. So for example, you wouldn't say, oh, Miss Bailey looks mean. Hopefully you wouldn't say that. You might say Miss Bailey looks tall or small or fat or thin. So we're looking at what they actually look like, not what they're like as a character. Now we'll have a look at their personality, and that's what they're like as a character. So Suki becomes extremely angry when people disturb him. He hates people looking into his house and shouts as loud as a foghorn when he catches them peering through the window. When he shouts at people climbing up the tree, they think that he's very rude. However, he reacts in this way because the people looking into his house are invading his privacy. He is usually as calm as a quiet stream and as lonely as a desert island. He enjoys reading books and being by himself. So this section here that says he is usually as calm as a quiet stream, I've added that on. I've said, actually, I think that this Pixie character is actually really quite a quiet, quite a lonely, quite an isolated character. The reason why he gets angry is because Joe, Beth and Frannie are peering through the window. So I'm also adding extra detail to make that character more realistic to me. And again here, I've used a few of those similes. He shouts as loud as a foghorn. You don't have to use similes every single sentence, but if you can add them in, they're really good at getting extra description. So what I want you to see whether you can do now is whether you can draw your character. So will it look like mine or will it look completely different? You can describe what he looks like. Maybe your character isn't wearing pink leggings, maybe he's wearing green leggings. Maybe your character has a massive wart on the end of his nose. Maybe your character has bright red or bright green hair, or he wears a big tall hat. You can decide, and you can describe what he looks like and what he's like as a character. Remember, we are using some of the facts from the book, so we know that he's an angry character. So either using the adjectives angry, or miserable or grumpy, those sorts of adjectives we still need to have in the what he's like as a character. So have fun doing your descriptions. Thank you.